Hello, my fellow concerned friends. Thank you so much for clicking on my video out of all of these videos. And before I say anything else, I just want to say massive trigger warning for today's video. Okay, I know I always have a trigger warning on my videos, but today opinions are going to be thrown out and facts are going to be looked at that are very uncomfortable. And this might be a very uncomfortable conversation to have. But as always, I'm really interested to know your guys' thoughts in the comments below. Also, how are you guys doing? How was your weekend? Let me know some things that you guys did that were fun. Give me ideas, because sometimes the weekend comes around and I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like, I have all this time now and I don't know what to do with myself. Do any of you guys read? If you said no, don't feel bad, okay? Because I just started reading again as an adult for the first time since I was a child, because I'm an adult now, at the end of last year, okay? And it did take me a hot minute to find books that kept me interested, that I was really into, to really spark that love of reading again. So don't feel bad. Maybe you just haven't found your books yet. And for those of you who said yes, what are you reading right now? I'll tell you what I'm reading right now. Men Who Hate Women. That's what I'm reading right now. And you know what's great about reading is there is a plethora of different genres and topics that you can read about. So there's like pretty much something out there for everyone, but there shouldn't always be. Today we are going to be discussing a very dark book, a book that I do not feel like should have ever been created. And talking about this book opens up the door to a much larger conversation about what kind of media should be allowed and should not be allowed. When is it no longer censorship and it's just simply protecting the innocence of children? Australian author charged for child material over the book Daddy's Little Toy. Before we really get into this, I really just want to reiterate that trigger warning that I gave in the beginning. And I do want to highlight that while yes, this is happening in Australia, this is an issue that is happening worldwide. And I am glad that some media attention is picking this up and that it is being taken as seriously as it has been, and that so many people are as horrified by this as they should be, because this opens up the door to the conversation of, is it censorship or is it just protecting the innocence of children, because some content and some media does not need to be published. So this book, Daddy's Little Toy, was written by Tori Woods, but Tori Woods is actually Lauren's pen name, because the person who actually wrote this book's name is Lauren Tesselin Matrosa, and I apologize if I'm not saying that right. And she is known for writing erotica, dark romance specifically. And I'm not here to hate on dark romance. I think that if it is something portraying two consenting adults, you know, like, hey, have at it, whatever. The dark romance is not what I'm criticizing. Let's continue to read. An Australian author has been charged with producing child material in her novel Daddy's Little Toy. The book explores the relationship between a young woman and her father's friend. And by young woman, they mean someone who is barely 18 years old. Sydney-based author Lauren Tesselin Matrosa, who writes erotic fiction under the pen name Tori Woods, is facing backlash after the release of her novel Daddy's Little Toy. While the book's promotional material describes it as a story about a barely legal 18-year-old woman, critics pointed out that its cover features the title spelled out in children's toy blocks. That is weird in and of itself, because when you are picking up an erotic novel, a romance novel, a novel with spice in it, you're not going to want to pick up your book and be looking at children's toy blocks, right? Like, how is that going to put you in the mood to read anything about any sort of spicy content at all when the first thing you're seeing is something that reminds you of a literal baby or toddler? And I'm aware that Tori or Lauren or whatever her name is today did not design and create that cover herself, but it really just highlights how nobody throughout this process like really stopped to think about what they were doing and the implications that they were making in their actions of producing this book. Readers also noted that the book suggests the father's friend had desired the little girl, the protagonist, since she was 3 years old. 3 years old. That is the premise.
Hi, me, full-grown man, has crush on friend's 3-year-old daughter. Nothing wrong with waiting till she's 18.
That's not weird. That's romance. That's dark romance. That's just fantasy. It's just fictional. It doesn't harm anybody. New South Wales police launched an investigation into the novel in March after receiving reports that it contained child material. On Friday around 12:30 p.m. local time, detectives arrested the 33-year-old at her home in Quakers Hill, Western Sydney. Authorities also executed a search warrant, seizing several hard copies of the book for forensic examination. Police confirmed that Tessalin Mastrosa has been charged with possessing, disseminating, and producing child material. She was granted conditional bail and is scheduled to appear before Blacktown Local Court on March 31st, which was yesterday. Following the backlash, Tessalin Mastrosa defended her work on social media, calling the controversy a big misunderstanding. She insisted the book does not promote or encourage child abuse or pedophilia. What is being said is grossly disturbing and breaks my heart as well as makes me sick, she wrote, adding that she understood why some parts of the books were being frowned upon. She also claimed that those involved in the book's production, including the cover design and editor, were unaware of its contents and were being wrongly attacked. In response to the controversy, Tessalin Mastrosa has deleted her social media accounts and the book has been removed from Amazon and Goodreads. Georgia Stove, the book's cover designer, publicly distanced herself from the author, revealing that she has received death threats. "I have cut ties with Tori Woods, effective immediately," she said. "All I had known about the book was the blurb, which I read barely legal, and in my mind, I truly thought that was okay. Please stop with the threats over something I had no say in." So let's discuss this a little bit, because I'm assuming that right now, those of you watching are probably like half and half. Half agree with me that this should have never been allowed to be made, that it should have never even gone as far as having it in the hands of people to read. And then the other half of you might be saying, okay, but that's infringing on people's freedom of speech and freedom of expression, and it's just fictional, so it's not actually hurting anybody. So really, the censorship is what's wrong. I am not pro censorship. I am not pro taking away somebody's freedom of expression or freedom of speech or freedom to exist in this world in whatever way makes them the happiest, until that starts infringing on other people's freedoms, and in this case, specifically the innocence of children. And now I know some people might be saying, well, no actual child's being hurt. There's not an actual child. It's literally words on paper. It's a made-up fictional kid. She dedicated the book to her kids, first of all. And secondly, in what world is it actually okay, and are we actually justifying and trying to make defenses for grown adults to write erotic fantasies about toddlers, to write novels describing being sexually attracted to toddlers and waiting until they're 18? In what world are we pretending like that's okay? Like, when it comes to protecting those vulnerable in our society, yes, it is okay for some things to be censored. I mean, just like we have charges for things like harassment, like you do not have a right to continuously talk to me in a way that I don't like. Do you all see my cat? Dr. Bell. I didn't even realize she came outside. Meow. Is she gonna jump up? Meow. Oh, come on. I got you. Okay. Here, say hi. I didn't even realize you came outside. Say hi, Dr. Bell. Oh. You wanna hang out with me? Okay. What was I saying? I can't even remember what I was saying. Dang it. Like, we wouldn't say that it's freedom of speech for a grown adult to be at a park and basically catcalling children, or like trying to like talk to children. We would say that's creepy. You don't belong here. You have no reason to be here, and you have no reason to be saying these things. And you are actually making this entire situation unsafe for these kids. Why can we not also say the same thing for material that's being put in the hands of those same creeps? I think that there is a very small particular group of people who would enjoy reading a book like this. Because let's get this straight, okay? This is not a horror book. This is not a thriller book. This is not a book raising awareness on how these kinds of things do happen. Because these things do happen, which makes it so much more horrifying that it's not a horror book, that it's not a thriller, that it wasn't meant to be a thought-provoking book. It is a romance, a dark romance. It is quite literally a book just meant to be enjoyed. And I think that that is wrong. But trust and believe, a lot of people disagree with me, and you might disagree with me too. Like, let's take a look at this article. The case of the erotica author arrested in Australia. Her novel is disturbing in the extreme, but it would certainly qualify as protected speech under the First Amendment in the United States. Mistrosa, an Australian author writing under the pen name Tori Woods, was arrested and charged with producing, possessing, and disseminating child material in her new erotica novel titled Daddy's Little Toy, which is now unavailable on Goodreads and Amazon. Police obtained copies of the book for forensic examination. The suspiciously juvenile book cover has the title spelled out in pastel-colored children's building blocks, and the blurb describes the story as following romance between a barely legal woman and an older man. Some individuals who received advanced copies left reviews alleging that the lead male character experiences sexual attraction to the female character when she is just a toddler. And there are also graphic descriptions of the minor's genitalia. To amp up the creepiness, the author dedicated the book to her own young children, and I believe her children are under the age of 4. And this love story, this grooming relationship, this abusive relationship started, I believe, in the book when she was only 3 years old. It goes on to say, I haven't read the book, nor do I want to, but I am comfortable asserting that Mastrosa should not be in jail, and her book would certainly qualify as protected speech under the First Amendment if this matter were being adjudicated in the United States rather than Australia. Although I do have a long list of moral objections to the book's themes, I am a free speech fundamentalist, and I think it is incredibly difficult to concoct a legal standard that criminalizes Daddy's Little Toy without applying to a wide range of perfectly acceptable books. There is absolutely a way to concoct a legal standard. The standard is we don't sexualize children. We don't involve children or childlike things in sexual adult fantasies, films, or novels. And if there is ever a time when a child has to be portrayed in some way, shape, or form, it should always be done in a way that horrifies and shocks the audience. Like, oh my God, this is an awful thing. Not in a way that says, oh, this is awful, but she likes it though. Well, she came on to him. Because you're literally just grooming your audience, just like the main lead character of the book groomed the kid. Like, there is a way. Anyway, if the objection is to the descriptions of a minor's genitalia, then the government also has to censor Anne Frank's diary, along with every book that provides guidance about puberty, like the New York Times bestseller titled The Care and Keeping of You, the body book for younger girls by American Girl. No. That is not the same. And honestly, this is what really infuriates me. I can't talk. Okay. Just give me a second. I just got to collect my thoughts for a second. Okay. The black and white thinking is why we will never make progress, I think is what I was trying to say. This whole concept of everything has to fly or nothing can fly is why we will never make progress. There is such an obvious and huge difference between a book marketed for children about their own body and the changes their own body is going to go through and how they can take care of their own body, you know, and their age group in an age appropriate way that makes sense to them. And then a grown adult person writing a fantasy erotica novel about a toddler being groomed by an older person and then getting into a relationship with that person. There is a difference, and you are lying to me and to yourself if you say, I don't see any difference at all. It's also nonsensical to argue that the authors should face legal consequences if their work satisfies depraved desires, given that basically everything is eligible to become an object of desire, and there's a pretty large population of weird people. Even if a policy specifically targeted books that satiate pedophiles, then any young fiction book with teenage romance would risk criminalization. Again, no. It is not the same thing. There is, again, a huge difference between somebody writing a novel where the main character is in love with a toddler and describes the of that toddler, or just minors in general, or just any age child in general, in great detail, and the things that they want to do to this toddler, and then the things that they're going to do as soon as this toddler is 18. That is not the same as a little teen romance in a book, again, written for teenagers. And I can understand how people are scared to talk about this, because it is a gray area, because you will have to make and draw that line somewhere, right? But can we also recognize, like, this is insane? And this does harm children. If we want to make progress, we really need to realize that it's okay to say art like this is insane. And the people who are creating and selling art like this need to be looked into. And at the bare minimum, they need some sort of mental health help. Because art like this does harm children in real life, even if it is not directly harming them. Daddy's Little Toy is quite literally a book meant to make the audience think that it is okay in some circumstances and situations for a grown man to have preyed on a toddler throughout her life, as long as he waited until she was 18. You cannot sit here and tell me that that is not potentially setting up a child for harm in the future, as things like this already are happening without the addition of now having art and books and movies or whatever it is normalizing these ideas and concepts under the guise of free speech. And now, obviously, I have not read this book myself, but the things that I've seen about this book, I'm genuinely disgusted. And here's just some of the things that I found specifically about this book. So this is the little girl's perspective. I can't help myself when I'm around him. I wet my pants in excitement. At night, I use my unicorn stuffy horn on myself. All I think about while I'm being naughty is my dad's best friend and how I wish he could be my daddy. I'm the freak of the family. My daddy is disappointed in me. My mom dismisses me, and my sister despises me. I'm delusional if I think Arthur would ever want to play with me. And then Arthur, the adult. My juicy Lucy, she's finally 18. I've wanted her longer than I can ever legally admit. She doesn't know it yet, but she's going to be my perfect little toy, my precious little unicorn, and I'm going to be her daddy. When I see her playing dress-ups, I forget all about the fact that she's my best friend's barely legal daughter, or that her mom hasn't protected and cherished her like she should. All I know is that she's meant to be my baby girl. Why would anybody want to read that? I feel disgusting even just reading that. I just genuinely can't wrap my mind around how anybody could defend this kind of literature. I don't think anybody should be using their free speech to write fantasies about thinking about what a child is doing with their stuffed animal while thinking about an adult. And there is a way to write about these topics in a way that does not romanticize it, that does not normalize it. Here are some more quotes from the book if you need any more reason to understand why I think censorship in this case absolutely should be a thing. Wanting a woman as sweet as my friend's toddler daughter Lucy, who was 3 at the time. I made the mistake of peeking between her legs only to find dark curls hiding what I'm sure was and still is the most perfect, untouched, pretty little. And while I'm impartial to a little pubic hair, I generally prefer my baby girl's bare. It makes the feel more authentic. Little girls don't have hair on their private parts. Let's just remember to keep in mind that she is a mother. Here is a review somebody left who had gotten an advanced copy of this book. I received this book as an advanced reader's copy, and I'm very glad I read the trigger warnings beforehand. This book explores the Daddy Littles relationship in great detail. I rated it a 3-star only because some parts were a little weird and uncomfortable for me. The plot of the story was well written, and I did enjoy the spicy scenes. Now let's talk about the Daddy Little relationship, because that is also a huge key factor in this conversation, because that's the whole pool. Is like, she's over 18 years old now, so there's no outright happening anymore because she is a legal adult. So now they are participating in what is known as DDLG. If you don't know what DDLG is, I have a definition for you right here. DDLG is an acronym for Daddy Dom Little Girl, a sexual relationship where the dominant male is the daddy figure and the woman plays the role of a little girl. So let's talk about DDLG a little bit. I don't know too much about that community, if I'm being completely honest, but what I do know is that it should always be between 2 consenting adults. Period. End of story. I'm going to be completely honest. I do not like the idea of anything childlike in a bedroom at all. I do not like it. It makes me uncomfortable. I don't understand it. I do know it's a slippery slope, and that slide goes real fast. This is not DDLG. This is not two consenting adults who enjoy this kink together. This was a child who was preyed upon and groomed on by a full-grown man, and when she was turned 18, made to believe, I'm assuming, that this was normal, okay, and actually something she wanted. That's abuse. That is not a kink. That's not consent. That's abuse. Coercion and grooming is abusive. I have this pulled up from victimsofcrime.org, and as I always do, or as I always try to, I'll have everything that I've read from today linked down below. So maybe you don't believe me that this relationship is abusive and grooming, and maybe you are still convinced no, she just probably really did have a crush on her dad's friend, and whenever she turned 18, she just on her own decided to be in a relationship with him. Grooming steps include identifying and targeting the victim, gaining trust and access to said victim, playing a role in the child's life, isolating the child, creating secrecy around the relationship, initiating sexual contact, and then controlling the relationship. So no, this book is not even about DDLG or any of those sort of kinks. It is quite literally a book about grooming and being successful with it and enjoying it. And there's no shame. Whenever all of this first came out and I first heard about it, I immediately thought about this book that was going viral on my TikTok, and I had given it a try and I DNR'd it. Could not finish it because I was like, this is just so awful. Tampa by Alyssa Nutting. Do you guys know that book? Well, after I talked about this situation on my TikTok, I also brought up Tampa, and a lot of people were like, no, you need to finish Tampa. They are not comparable at all. And so I bit the bullet and I did finish Tampa. It was very hard to finish, and I do not recommend anybody read that book. Honestly, I don't. I just could not personally recommend it for just anybody to read. However, I do want to bring up Tampa, because as disturbed and horrified I was throughout the entire book, that was Alyssa's point. That was the point of the book, to highlight how a young, attractive woman in America can so easily groom and young boys and basically get away with it. Because if you read Tampa and you get to the end, she basically got a slap on the wrist. And my heart broke so much for those boys at the end. I literally was crying. Because it made me realize, even more than I already did, but it really put me in that courtroom with them and made me realize, the justice is just not there. There is just not justice. And I ended the book angry, wanting to do something about that. That is not the goal of this book, though. Daddy's Little Toy, the goal after you're done reading that book is not, you're not meant to end that book and then be like, wow, I really need to go put a stop to grooming. I really need to go put a stop to men preying on little children. That's not the point. Tori Lauren, whatever her name is, supposedly had her court date yesterday. I've tried to see if I could find an update on it or any new information to bring regarding what's going to happen with her, because just because you are charged with something does not mean it's going to stick. She could definitely have this court date and then hash it out with the judge or however you all sees do it down there, and walk out and the judge be like, that was such a waste of time. Don't ever bring me a case like that again. Or it could go a different way, and this could be huge. This could really set a huge precedent for the standard and the care that authors and artists should take when it comes to depicting children and relationships with children within their work. And I personally think that that's an incredible start. If I see any update on what happens with Tori Lauren, I will definitely let you guys know. And I just appreciate you guys hanging out with me. I know that this was kind of a little bit more of a scattered video. I feel like I was not very cohesive Is that the word I'm looking for? I don't know. And I think that's because I was getting a little bit emotional here and there, if you guys caught on to that. So thank you for sticking around with me for this long, if you have. And I also just wanted to say thank you guys so much for 18,000 subscribers. That's literally insanity to me. I just really appreciate all of your guys' support and love and engagement on my posts. And I would really love to know your thoughts on this one. Do you feel like this is too far, or do you feel like this is something that should be protected? Let me know your thoughts down below, and I will see you guys with a lighter-hearted video later on this week. Thank you for watching, like and subscribe. Seriously, thank you guys for being here and supporting me. I really do appreciate it. And here is another picture one of my wonderful children took of me.